Yes. Um, we're live. It is about 1:15 Wednesday afternoon. It is the 31st of 2024. It's the last day of the month. And tomorrow is February. Not my favorite month, but my least favorite month is January. So it's no longer January. So that makes it a somewhat favorable month. Um, my favorite month is actually June. It is Man, there's just something sort of magical about June. You are just about at summer, and summer's actually starting later in the month, but there's still a little bit of spring still in the air. It's not yet, at least in the mid Atlantic states. Um, you haven't quite hit that super hot, humid weather, although it can get pretty warm. It's just, it's the season on the cusp, not fully yet the heat wave of summer. Um, but it's certainly left winter behind, which makes me happy. Although um, I've come to accept seasons more so than I have, you know, I don't want to say seasonal depression because that sort of um, implies that it's something that exists only in certain seasons. Um, when I've had the I've had depression my life, I think it's a difficult thing to talk about, especially when you experience depression. It's not as if you have um, a non-depressed state to have it compared to. It is simply a presence there, and it's life, and you don't know differently. Now that doesn't mean I'm depressed all the time, but it means that it's a presence that lurks near, no matter what. And I'm very fortunate that I do not suffer from severe depression. I have been offered medication a time or two, but I've been reluctant to ever use medication. If you need medication, by all means, take medication. Um, Depression can be devastating for so many people. It has never devastated me. It has just been an underlying presence that visits a little more intensely sometimes, and it does seem to do so in the colder months of the year. Not so much when I was younger, but as I got older, um, as I experienced winter more deeply than I had in the past, it would affect me more so. Um, the past few years, I've been able to hold depression, not keep it at bay, but literally feel like I hold it, like it is a visitor that I can care for. I don't fight it. I don't push it away. I certainly don't want it, but I have learned to live with its presence. Reminds me of Ruby's poem, The Guest House. Let's pull that up. It's a beautiful poem, as all of Ruby's poems are. And I think this is something you arrive at. I don't think you can reach for it. I don't think that you can um, make this an achievement that a therapist could say, this is how, this is where we're going to get to. With the right medication, with the right techniques, with the right whatever, we can reach this stage. I think the only way you get here is through grace. Now, certainly, um, there are techniques that cultivate grace. That if you meditate, if you do pranayama, if you do yoga asanas, if you practice pratyahara, center withdrawal, um, all of that will have a profound impact on your emotional well-being, on your psychological well-being. But grace is never promised, of course. That's the whole essence of grace, that it is unbeckoned. It happens. It always reminds me of the debate that occurs in certain non-duality circles about whether or not meditation or yoga leads to an awakening. And of course, those in the Neo-Advaita non-duality circles say nothing leads to awakening. It just happens. And those who are in a more traditional yogic school, both having awakenings, will say, certainly my meditation, my yogic practices have led me here. And of course, they're both right, because they've both achieved a sense of awakening. So each is right for them. I like Jack Kornfield's, the Buddhist meditation teacher, an author, who's written some wonderful books. A Path with Heart is one of my favorites, and it might be his first, or it was his big breakthrough book. After the Ecstasy, The Laundry might be my favorite. He agrees with in a sense, with the Neo-Advaita groups, saying that meditation does not lead, that meditation is an accident. Sorry, awakening is an accident, but meditation makes you accident prone. And that's the same way I feel with grace, that grace is an accident. However, meditation and yoga techniques all make you accident prone. And that leads us to Rumi's poem, The Guest House. And again, this isn't something that really we strive for. This is actually, in actuality, I know I keep saying when I get to the poem, it is our actuality. This is who we are. However, we have layers and layers and layers of selfhood, of selfness, of life, of what they call in Taoism the 10,000 things, details, objects, obstacles that prevent us from seeing this reality. Meditation helps us see through all that clutter to our essence, and we arrive to Rumi's guest house. So now I will finally read Rumi's guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. That is Rumi's guest house. That is the state of grace that we somehow arrive to, where we greet depression at the door. We welcome it in. Doesn't necessarily mean we enjoy it or we want it or we wish, What we're saying is it's here. And only through acceptance, only through awareness, are we able to relax and rest and simply be okay in spite of everything not being okay. All right, we got some friends here. Lewis, it is what it is, who is unofficially Mr. Three Pump. And the only reason he is unofficial, it's not going to last. We all know he is soon to be Mr. Four Pump. And in a short time, he is soon to put the mantle of Mr. Five Pump directly on his shoulders and carry it through the rest of the year. And rumor has it, there's not going to be a end of the season retirement from It Is What It Is. And he will carry the title of Mr. Five Pump from here on after. I don't know if that rumor is true. And I can't tell you who I heard it from, but I heard it from Lewis. So there must be some truth in there. Let's see, our friend Destiny, Forever Walks, PhD is here. Hello, Eric, how are you? I'm here listening. I'm doing pretty well. Lewis is saying thank you. And Destiny said that she is doing great. Good to hear. I was talking about depression because I was talking about February, and January can be a hard month for me. We're in the thick of winter, and for whatever reason, again, it's not seasonal depression. It's a every season, low-lying depression that has been part of my life for as long as I can remember, varying degrees. But in the last decade, it has seemed to get worse in winter. In the past 2 or 3 years, things have gotten lighter. It's still there, still arrives. Whenever it does, nothing predicate how it might come here. Nothing sets it off. It's just something that arrives, much as Rumi was saying in the Guest House poem, which I'll read again in a little bit. And what I mean by being able to hold it lighter is I see it, I recognize it, and I allow it. I no longer try to fight it. That's the difference between the experience of something that we don't like, that might lay us low, that might kneecap us, that might emotionally incapacitate us. But it's still not suffering. It just sucks. Suffering is when we say, all of this sucks and I don't want it here, and I'm doing my best to push it away and push it away and push it away and push it away, but it doesn't go. Now you're suffering because it's the refusal to accept the fact that right now sucks. And it's allowed to, because sometimes it does. That's life. Again, in the Tao Te Ching, they call it the 10,000 things. And 10,000 things is just a metaphor for the everything of life. If you are alive, there's a possibility, the potentiality for anything and everything to happen. And some of that is going to be pretty bad. We're all going to lose a loved one. Sorry. We're all going to suffer loss. We're all going to have hardships. But nonetheless, life is beautiful, full of love. As a matter of fact, we could say the existence itself is love. Think of the odds against us even being here, how great they are. I mean, astronomical, to the point where we have to literally make up numbers to count the odds of us being here. And yet we are. We were gifted. I'm not saying that something was given to us. I mean, we ourselves were gifted just to be here. And the great secret is we've always been here. Every element that makes our existence was created in the birth of the universe. And before that, it existed as potentiality within the... James Gap is here. Hey, James. We existed as potentiality within the singularity of, excuse me, of energy. Um, so we existed before the Big Bang as potentiality. So we could say, literally, we existed in the mind of God, always, eternity, the infinite. We went from the unmanifest to the manifest, and now here we are. That seems to be sort of an underlying reality for me, which allows me to hold the depression, not at bay, but to hold it here, to say, yes, for whatever reason I hurt, for whatever reason life has me down pretty low. However, I'm still here. And that's pretty amazing. So let's read the guest house one more time. I know I read it for you guys once today, and I'm sure I read it probably lots of times before. But it's such a beautiful poem. Every time I read a Rumi poem, I say, this is probably my favorite. For today, until I read the next Rumi poem, this is most definitely my favorite. This is who we are, and this explains everything that comes to us. And it also shows us the way of grace, that with this being our reality, all we have to do is relax and accept it. And everything is by a degree better. And you know what? Sometimes by a degree, just a little bit, sorry, I'm making hand gestures, no one can see it, just by a degree, that much. Sometimes that's enough. I think about that with warmth, that just a little bit of warmth sometimes in those cold, cold winter mornings, just a little bit of warmth. A sunbeam. I watched my cat find a sunbeam as it travels across the living room floor, and she'll move throughout the day, staying in that sunbeam. Just that little slim bit of light, that's enough. Sometimes just recognizing that little bit of light within us is enough. That's the whole, I often talk about this at the end of my burpee workout, when we do some breathing, and I'll say namaste, and how the light within me recognizes and salutes the light within you. The important thing is recognize that light within yourself. Sometimes it's pretty easy to recognize it in someone else, especially our loved ones who do so much for us. And it's so easy to see the grace and the love and the light within this person. But guess what? If you can see it and recognize it, that means you know it. And if you know it, that means it's yours. It's your light too. There's no, if you look at a sunbeam, you can't dissect it. You don't take one photon and put it over here and another over here and another over here. It's just light. When you recognize the light within your loved one, you're recognizing your own light. Turn it back. Give some of that love back to yourself, and you will feel infinitely better. Because guess what? You have this amazing person doing so much for you that you love so much. There's got to be something there. There's got to be that light for her to do that, for him to do that, for whoever to do that. If you don't have someone in your life that is reflecting that light, buy yourself a dog, because a dog will always show you that light. A dog is unconditional love. The reason why a dog is unconditional love, because that's who and what they are. But they recognize it within you. I had, after my divorce, my wife had my two beloved dogs. Now, of course, she lived right down the street, so I still saw them every day. I still showed up to walk them 2 or 3 times a day. I still fed them every day. But I didn't see him as often as I wanted to, and then eventually my wife moved farther away and I couldn't go see him. During the last 6 months of my one dog, Toby, um, that he passed away, right before he passed away, his past few months, he came to live with me and my dad. And he was blind and he was deaf. Um, and I absolutely loved having him here. Every so often, I would forget and shut a door. I'd go into a room and I'd shut a door. And Toby, despite being blind, despite being deaf, would find me and he would go to walk in and be with me. But because the door was shut, he'd run into it. And of course, I'd feel horrible and I'd open the door and he'd shrug it off and he'd come down and he'd lay down next to me as I was working at my computer, as I was writing or doing whatever. Already forgiven, already forgotten, because he was exactly where he wanted to be. And he knew I would do better next time. Even if I didn't do better next time, he had faith that I would. That's who and what we are. That's my lesson from Toby. That every time I mess up, there'll be a next time and I can do better. And if I don't do better, give myself a break. Because I mean well. And Toby knew I meant well. I'm going to read Rumi. But let me, let's see. Destiny says, that little light within us is the brightest light than all the stars in the universe. We just have to see it, know it, and recognize that the light is your inner expression in the world. Exactly. And you know what? The truth is, we are actually made of star particles. The same stuff that made the stars is making us, has made us. No separation. If you recognize a star in the sky, you have to recognize your own light as well. That's the nature of saying namaste to another. So, let's get back to the guest house. And if you guys were here and you heard it already, I apologize for reading it again. It's just a very powerful poem. And again, it reflects the inherent grace of who we are. And it's just a good reminder. I have another Rumi poem that I will bring up after I read this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door with laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Absolutely beautiful. And that is why depression doesn't really floor me the way it used to. Even when it comes unexpectedly, even when everything is even keeled, and then out of the blue, I find myself sinking. It's just a visitor in the guest house. Me, myself, the reality of what I am not depressed. The reality of me is experiencing depression. There's a big difference. Very big difference. And that slim degree of separation is what makes a difference. It reminds me of, I can't remember his name. He's a CNN broadcaster. And he suffered an anxiety attack on air. And people saw it. He froze. Which, when you're an international news correspondent, billions of eyes on you, and you freeze, it's a big thing. And he realized that he suffered anxiety. He went to therapy. He was on medication. None of it really worked. He started meditating. He started mindful meditation, Buddhist meditation. And he wrote a book, 10% Happier. people ask him, did meditation help your depression and your anxiety? And he said, I'm about 10% happier, which is huge when you feel that way. If you've ever felt the severe depression, 10% happier is life changing. And honestly, meditation can do that. Breath work can do that. Yoga can do that. Yoga Nidra can do that. Destiny says, exactly true. Talking about stars and very, very beautiful poem. Thanks for reading it, Eric. You're welcome. And it is. And it's just profound. Rumi had that knack. I'm looking up another Rumi poem. So I did say that last one was my favorite. And then, of course, I'll read something else and say, no, this one's my favorite. Here's a quote, not an entire poem. If everything around seems dark, look again, you may be the light. I'll read that again slower. Or I will try to. If everything around seems dark, look again, you may be the light. Meaning, light does not always recognize itself. It's only in the perception of darkness that you can recognize light. Otherwise, it's just light. However, that was not the quote. Or the was not the one that I wanted. However, we will find it. Let's see. Destiny says, oh yeah, I got that. Yeah, it's when it hits you, it hits you. You gotta love when those insights find you and floor you exactly where you are. Eventually, I'll find the poem that I want. Until then, the great thing is stumbling across other poems and quotes from Rumi. Let the waters settle. You will see stars and moon mirrored in your own being. That's meditation. The whole art and act of meditation is letting the mind settle. And as you can tell in any body of water, be it ocean, pond, lake, bay, doesn't matter, when it settles, when there's hardly even a ripple, you see the stars and the moon reflected in that water. When the mind settles through meditation, your own beauty, your own light is reflected back to you. And that's why, even in the midst of depression, you feel better, even just 10% better, because you see your own beauty reflected back to you. And when you can see that, things aren't quite so bad. It's only when you believe what your thoughts and your mind might be telling you. And most of that stuff, those thoughts that you're having, they're not yours. We've inherited them. If you have an opinion about how you look, someone gave it to you. As a kid, when you looked in the mirror for the first time, you didn't say, well, wait a minute, that can't be me. I don't look like that. The only way you know, we've talked about this before, you have never seen your own head. You have never seen your own face before. You have no idea what you look like. You only have seen, you've heard descriptions, you've seen reflections, you've seen a photograph, maybe you've seen a photo or a painting or a drawing. You yourself have never seen your face. As far as you know, it doesn't even exist. If you look and you point, not out there, but in this direction, you will only find spaciousness itself. Patania Islam Chess is here. Hey, I enjoy your channel and watching your virtual chess playing. So I appreciate you being here. Thomas says, in light and darkness, two sides of the same coin. Is light and darkness two sides of the same coin? Therefore, there's no difference, no separation of the two? That's a good question. I'm going to say that darkness itself doesn't have a reality outside of light. There's only light. That darkness arrives not from the absence of light, but in the refusal of seeing light. Light itself is always present. Life itself is the what the universe is made from. At night, it's not dark because of the absence of the sun, but only because of the position of the earth itself. Like a shadow, exactly. Destiny says, we create our self-image by agreeing with other people's thoughts of ourselves, and we lose sight of our true image. Exactly. Because again, we don't see our own face, our own reality, ever. Except, again, when we point in this direction, what we find is emptiness. And yet, it's an aware, spacious emptiness. That's our reality. From that emptiness, from that capacity, comes everything. When I look for my face and I see nothing, if you stand in front of me, I get to see you as my reality. We're trading places. My emptiness, my spaciousness, for your form. Your emptiness, your spaciousness, for my form. We're living the Heart Sutra. Emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. And as Destiny said, all we get are other people's descriptions and opinions. And of course, that's true with everything in life. If you examine our religion, our political party, our belief systems, how much of what would we have if we started from scratch? If someone waved a magic hand in front of us and we were completely empty, and then we were allowed to piece things together again, what are the odds that they'd be the same that they are now? We'd have to read the same books. We'd have to hear the same things from our parents. We'd have to watch the same news broadcasts, the same TV shows, the same movies. We'd have to have the same teachers, the same clergymen, the same grandparents, the same neighbors, whatever, to fill us up with all the things that we think are true now, but are just an opinion, our opinion, that we cherish above all else. Every problem in the world stems from cherishing our opinion. Think of world leaders right now who are causing severe international problems. Let's use Putin as an example. He has a very high opinion of himself. He believes that Ukraine is his country's, his nation's, his destiny is to take it back. And of course, Ukraine, being a separate nation, has other views on that matter entirely, as they should. But imagine if Putin simply changed his mind, had a different thought, no longer believed that someone else's nation was his to do what he wanted to do by force. All it takes is a change of mind. And then Tao Te Ching, they tell you, change your mind, change your thoughts, change the world. Everything changes. The world and how we view it is all just shaped upon these opinions. If we didn't cherish our opinions so much, we would realize they're just thoughts, they're just beliefs. And we have thousands of thoughts every day, most of which we don't decide to believe, fortunately. So, I have no idea how we ended up on this topic, but sometimes it happens. Let's see. Thomas says, being a dictator sounds exhausting. It does, doesn't it? Who would want to live that life? And we think it's in the pursuit of power, but you know what? It's not real power. It's force. And there's a huge difference between the two. Force is exhausting. Power gives itself away. Always. Because power is inexhaustible. Power is the universe. Force are people within the universe who say, this is the way things should be. Oh, I didn't see Odom here. Odom says, darkness doesn't exist. Darkness is the absence of light. Absolutely true. Beautifully said, Odom. And welcome. I'm sorry I missed you. So here's the quote from Rumi, saying, by God, when you see your beauty, you will be the idol of yourself. That's what meditation does. You start to see your beauty. Finally start seeing your beauty. After years of believing other people's opinion and then your own opinion, thinking that it's true, you wake up and you see your own beauty. So, a little bit of a spiel from me. Making sure I have everyone's comments here. Thomas and Odom, have you had a chance to witness the 14 all-star burpees from our friend Destiny Forever Walks? Thomas says, I think of darkness as a real substance of the universe, light as a temporary projection. You know what? I can't argue that. When you think of the vast majority of the universe is made of dark matter, however, when we think of the absolute, which came before the Big Bang, that would certainly be dark. But it's a different darkness. It's the darkness of the womb, which from which we all come from, and light emerges from. Thomas says he has not yet. It is definitely worth checking out. They are 14 strong, powerful, yet joyful burpees. Thomas says that's, or Destiny says that's a good analogy, Thomas, and it is. And Thomas says, what's beyond the edge of the universe? You've heard the story, turtles all the way down. Um, the edge of the universe, and you get to the universe. Um, it's the universe all the way down. The story was the William James, the father of American psychology, was giving a lecture, and he was talking about universal structure, and a woman in the audience, an elderly woman, said that she believed and had it on good authority that the universe existed on the back of a turtle. And that made William James chuckle. And he said, but if that's true, what's beneath the turtle? And the older woman smiled and said, you think you have me, but the truth is, it's just turtles all the way down. And there you go. It's turtles all the way down. It's universe all the way down. Thomas says, maybe it's a hall of mirrors. That's perceptive as well, because that reminds me of Indra's net, Indra's jewel. Indra being one of the Vedic gods, one of the Hindu yogic Vedic gods. They do try to make a distinction between Vedic and Hindu, as there is a difference. You can be a Vedic philosopher, practitioner, scholar, and not be a Hindu. Same with being a yogi. Doesn't mean that you have to practice Hinduism. They exist on their own. So Indra is a god, and he has a bedazzled jewel that he has in a web, and it reflects all the other jewels that are arranged in that web, making the entire universe itself. Hall of mirrors. It is holographic, is another way of looking at it. And of course it is. One aspect of the universe contains the entire universe. I love using the example of my hands. When I go outside at night and I raise my hands to the universe, there is no place where the universe stops at the edge of my hands and say, well, can't go any farther. Eric has his hands up. There's no place where my hands stop and the universe begins. It's just universe, universing. Alan Watts talked about, as the ocean waves and a tree branches, the universe selves, peoples, beings. We're just an expression of the universe. Same as a tree, same as a squirrel, same as an acorn. We just think we're more clever, and maybe we are. But almost every morning, I've talked before that I'm up every morning at 3, and I meditate, do my breath work, I meditate, I do my first round of yoga, have my coffee, and I write, and then I go outside to walk, and it's still dark, and we're in that thin place between two worlds. It's not yet quite dawn, but it's not yet still night. A thin place. And you could put your hands up and you literally feel the universe vibrating on your fingertips. And you realize there's just no separation. It really is a holographic universe, that I am that. Destiny says the universe or university is endless, infinite indeed. Lewis says, I'm convinced that the sun is a LED light. It could be an LED light a lamp in a kid's room who's waiting for his parents to come in and say goodnight before he turns the light off. You guys are probably too young to remember the TV show St. Elsewhere about the hospital, and it ended with a kid who had autism staring into a snow globe, and in the globe was the entire hospital, and it was just a story that was happening in the kid's imagination. Thomas says, and we're in a terrarium. Lewis says, I remember it being orange when I was a kid. The light, the LED light, or the universe. The amazing thing is, we could trade our stories back and forth, and all of them exist as some sort of reality, possibility, potentiality, one of my favorite words. It's all just a mystery, mystifying, offering us glimpses. Destiny says, Eric, I remember the story about the kid staring into the snow globe. Who's to say? We could be Boltzmann brains. I can look that up and read that because it's beyond my explanation. There was a scientist, Boltzmann, his last name, who had a theory that we exist within a singular brain, a Boltzmann brain, and that we're just basically figments of its imagination. I wrote about that. I'll let you guys decide if you want me to Wikipedia and explain a Boltzmann brain, or if you want me to read my blog post of a Boltzmann brain. Sorry. Lewis says it was the sun that was more orange. Could be. Thomas says, it's useful the sun is brighter, but maybe it's my eyes getting older. Probably both, I think. So, Boltzmann brain. Let me bring up my blog. Stuff like this really fascinates me. We'll see if it comes up. So the Boltzmann brain is a thought experience. This is my blog. It's long, so I decided not to read it. So the line of thought, I'm just going to summarize what I wrote. The line of thought suggests that statistically speaking, it is more likely for a single brain to spontaneously form in a void, along with its memories of a full and meaningful life, than it is for the universe itself to have appeared exactly as it seems to have done. Meaning, statistically speaking, it is more likely of a singular brain forming within a void, the void of the universe itself, along with spontaneously all the memories of a complete life, of everything that's ever happened in the universe, than it is for life itself to have sprung up the way it has. It was an Australian physicist, Ludwig Boltzmann. And you know, if your name is Ludwig, you got to be a genius. Have you ever met a Ludwig who was just sort of run of the mill? Have you ever met a Ludwig who was just, not too bright, but a really nice guy? That's what people say. No one ever says about a Ludwig. For some reason, they are all entirely brilliant. Um, so it's a thought experiment, and statistically, it's a greater chance of that happening than of the Big Bang. Um, it is also somehow scientifically, beyond me, of course, related to the laws of thermodynamics. Most of which, as we think, the law of entropy, that um, things that are things have a tendency to wind down, and yet the universe itself is expanding. How can that be? Um, Thomas says, if you're not a believer in creation, then aren't the stats of a brain forming 100%? Or evolving, I would think. Thomas says, I thought the Big Bang was no longer viable as a theory. It still is, but it is more open to debate than it was. Um, I think most agree that it's probably more apt to be a big banging experience, that this was just one of infinite big bangs. That is, again, the Vedic yogic thought and a Buddhist cosmology thought. The universe has always been in existence, and just like a breath, there's the inhalation, the exhalation. The universe comes into existence, the universe pulls itself out from existence, and it just repeats indefinitely. So yeah, I even wrote in my blog, and I wrote this 2 or 3 years ago, the science loses me. It's too complicated for me to understand. It mostly concerns entropy, random fluctuations of particles, and the heat death of the universe. And what I wrote, my answer to the Boltzmann brain debate, is that I'll read my part of my blog. That what I'm here to suggest is that grace plays a role in all of this. No matter how the universe first appeared or the likelihood of our existence, we are here now. Reality supports us, even if we're a Boltzmann brain that spontaneously came to be, false memories and all. We're alive in some unique and truly fortunate way. That's the thing with statistics. No matter the chance occurrence, it's always Shiva's game, a roll of dice for an entire universe to present itself, or again to disappear, or not exist at all. None of it is for our to control. The dice are never in our hands. It's always Shiva's play. So with grace in mind, I find myself grateful for the life that exists right now. How all the possibilities suggest that none of this should ever be, and yet somehow it is, and I am an essential part of its reality. If I am a Boltzmann brain, then this is all a dream of my existence, an entire universe created just to know myself. And more so, it's all a dream so that I can know you. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the least. It's fun to speculate. Are we a Boltzmann brain? How did the Big Bang come about? Did the Big Bang even happen? None of it matters. What matters is that we exist, even if it's just a memory in someone else's brain. We exist right now, and that's our reality. So, Lewis says, Eric, in chat, do you remember seeing the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper as a child? Because I still see the same shape of stars in the sky, no change. It's an interesting point, Lewis. Because that is, you can say the same about your own awareness. Do you remember looking in the mirror and seeing the face of a 4-year-old child, and looking in the mirror, maybe the same mirror, and seeing the face of a 16-year-old kid? Looking in the mirror today and seeing a 40-year-old? All that's changed except for one thing: the awareness itself. Awareness always stays the same. The awareness of the non-changing state of the Big Bang has remained constant with the Big Bang itself. That awareness, who and what we are. Thomas says, stars look the same to me. And Thomas says, aren't we blessed to be able to have such thoughts? We certainly are indeed. And Thomas says, I agree, Eric. That is why I like exercise, staying rooted in existence. Embodiment. And that's important, especially when you meditate, when you practice anything that opens you up, to also realize that, as Thomas said, you're rooted in the ground at the same time. We're made from the earth. We're dust, we're clay that was breathed into life from God's whisper, God's breath. So it's important to remember the fact that Lewis says, no, I see wrinkles. Yeah, you and me both. New ones every day. Destiny says, yes, we are so blessed, Thomas, to such same-like thoughts. We are all divinely connected. We are all one. I agree. Definitely agree with that. Thomas says, I love Crusades of Motivation's mantra, I am. The infinite appearing from I am. It's what Nisargadatta Maharishi, the title of his book, I Am That. Every I am precedes everything. And that's why Nisargadatta would always say, just go back to I am. Just go back to I am. If you say, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am tall, I am short, I am a Republican, I am a Democrat, forget all that. Go back to I am. Presence itself. Originalness. Beingness. Presence. Everything first is I am, and then diversifies itself. When Moses asked the burning bush, who should I say that gave me these commandments? And the bush said, I am that I am. I am that which I am. In the Psalms, be still and know I am. So the original thought, I am, anything that comes after, is false. By false, I don't necessarily mean not meaningful, doesn't have value, but it's not the actuality. That's why in psychology they say the map is not the territory, or the meal is not the menu, or the menu is not the meal. Yet we confuse the same in life. But as the Nisargadatta always says, just come back, keep coming back to I am, I am, I am. Thomas says, what is meant is that we have time to think and not simply toil or try to survive. It's a pretty important thing to consider. Although it also gets us in trouble. Sometimes more often than not. I think the key is just to relax and smile, to know that we have this ability to think, to strive, to invent things, to make things, but none of that is who we are. It's what we do. Our beingness itself is unaffected by all that. So to hold that paradox as being true, that we have the ability to think, we have the ability to invent, we have the capability to shape the entire universe. More so, to destroy our little section of the universe, or at least alter it in such a way as to be unlivable. And yet at the same time, our own divine nature is unaffected by all of that. Let's see, Sadhir, am I pronouncing that right? Welcome, my friend. So, well, we're over an hour. So I'm going to have to call it a day. I try to make it half an hour. But when I got a great group of friends showing up and we're having a conversation like this, you got to keep rolling with it. Because who knows what thoughts are going to spark, you know? This might be the group right here that discovers the answers to all of life's problems. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least. You know what else wouldn't surprise me? If indeed the answer to all of life's problems, just do burpees. That might be it right there. Have you ever, Lewis says, great conversation, Eric, thank you. And Mikhail says hello. Hello, Mikhail. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right as well. He's asking, how are you? I'm fine. I hope you are as well. Thomas says it was a luxury to spend time with you, friends. It is what it is, says Boom. And you know, as Thomas said, you know, exercise, it's embodiment. Have you ever not felt better after doing a set of burpees? Have you ever not felt that things are just right? Especially because sometimes we exist in that paradoxical nature again. We're in movement, we're in motion itself, and yet there's this little thing that is completely still. So we're in stillness and motion at the same time. We're a perfect expression of the universe while we're doing burpees. And then afterwards, we might judge our burpees set. We might say, man, I only got this many reps, or I was slow, or I was whatever. But when we were doing burpees, everything was just right. So I think we actually have stumbled upon the answer to the universe. It's not turtles all the way down. It's just burpees. I'm sticking with that. Burpees all the way down. So with that, guys, Destiny says, Eric, this is why I said that if we put our thoughts together, that we write in these chats, we'd all create a book that the world long waits for. That would not surprise me in the least. Something to consider too. And it is what it is. Says 200 today, fam. That's awesome. That means, in my estimate at least, that the comeback is complete. 200 reps signifies. It won't be official until you're hitting the 5 pumps, but unofficial, I think we can easily say the comeback is complete. We only need one more thing to fall into place for the trifecta. We just saw Brad deadlift 400 pounds after his surgery. Lewis just hit 200 burpees. All we need, Richard runs trails to bring home the 100-mile belt buckle, and we got it. Destiny says, going for 200 burpees today. It is what it is. Awesome. It is awesome. Thomas says, book of poetry sounds like a fun project. It actually is a fun project. I have 5 or 6 books of poetry, all available on Amazon, by the way. I would not make any claim of good poetry, but poetry nonetheless. And it was fun to write. And I've done it through the years. I'm sure I'll do it some more. Basically, it's just I've taken things that I've written on my blog over the years and put it together in book form, and proudly sell it in the dozens. So, and that's good enough for me. And then YouTube has just opened up new channels for me to come here. I read the stuff that I write. All my shorts are is just reading from my blog. Destiny says, thanks everyone for the thoughts, wisdom, knowledge. It was an awesome discussion. It was an awesome discussion. Thank you. And it was awesome because of every single person was essential to making it so. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Much love. I appreciate you, Eric, and Chad, as I do as well. Thank you, Thomas, Odom, Destiny, Lewis, and I'm sorry, I know I'm forgetting the new people that popped in. Mikhail, Sidhir, and I think we had one more person. Don't want to forget anyone, but I probably will. But hey, I appreciate everyone stopping by and everyone contributing again to an awesome conversation. So with that, we're going to say goodbye. Take care, guys.